My name is Hugh Ferguson. I'm a first sergeant with the Rockbridge County Sheriff's Office, and now I'm the school resource officer at Maury River Middle School. And I've been in local law enforcement here for 28 years plus, and I'm a combat veteran of the Marine Corps.
Hello, I'm Jade Knick, and I'm a producing agency manager with Virginia Farm Bureau here in Lexington, and I have been with Farm Bureau for 24 years.
Thank you both for being here today. We're going to talk today about social hosting and what that means and some of the effects on insurances for social hosting and some of the things that go along with that. Hugh, would you kind of give us a definition of social hosting?
Sure. Social hosting is typically where an adult provides a location and purchases or provides alcohol to people who are underage, whether they're underage of 21 or typically maybe high school age teenagers. And these adults, I guess, have a sense that maybe if they provide the location that they can monitor, and if they're giving the alcohol out to other people, not their own children exclusively, but to their children's friends, that it's a safer way for the kids to drink underage. And it has a lot of civil and criminal possibilities that could come back to haunt them if there's something that was found out or something bad happened as a result of their liability.
All right. Can you give us some examples of what happens if you are caught in the process of hosting?
Sure. Well, giving alcohol to anyone under the age of 21 is a Class 1 misdemeanor in Virginia, so that's punishable by up to a year in jail and or a $2,500 fine. If the kid is under the age of 18 and they're a juvenile, then you also have contributing to delinquency of a minor. That also carries Class 1 misdemeanor and a $2,500 fine. The one aspect of the providing alcohol to an underage person under 21 also carries, besides that penalty, it also carries a license suspension, their driver's license for that person who provided the alcohol. Those are the typical ones, and then if it leads into where there's any kind of injury or some gross negligence, then they could possibly be charged with more serious offenses too.
So if you are necessarily driving, so you've gone to a convenience store as an adult, you've picked up some alcohol, and you are taking it to a party where minors will be, you don't really necessarily know that if you've pulled somebody over for a taillight or something like that.
Correct.
So as a part of that question, we're not really looking for that. So apart from actually being caught in the process of social hosting, how can I be on the lookout for that? Or are there any signs or things that I can look at or patterns that we can follow to see if that's going on?
Yeah, I mean, typically, believe it or not, most of the time when there's a party that would be designated like a social hosted party, the kids are going to talk about it. And many of them, even the ones that are not going to go, will know about it because they, younger people tell each other everything. And we do get reports. In the last year, we've had reports where students, high school students who didn't approve of what was going on, they called and told us, and we had officers respond, and they made some charges. So typically, it's going to be word of mouth. Randomly finding it. Most of the time we'll find it, it'll be a noise complaint or the neighbors calling about reckless driving or some kind of inappropriate behavior that a neighbor's calling in, and when we get there we can tell real quickly that it's an underage party because people begin to try to flee and get away, and that's when we kind of step in and try to start looking to make charges. And all we have to do is find somebody that provided the alcohol and get some statements from the people that consume the alcohol, and then we can make a charge on that adult.
Do you find the community response in helping you locate the sources of these parties favorable?
Yes, I think the vast majority of adults look down upon this behavior. Now, I don't think it happens excessively, but we do know that it happens. But I think most adults are responsible, and they would not approve of it. They would not want their children to be there drinking, and the potential dangers that can come with that. So I think most of our society, they don't condone it, and they would report it if they knew about it.
Are there popular time periods throughout, especially the school year?
Yeah, most of the time you're going to see it around prom. Our society, kind of the prom is the breaking out party of a high schooler's life, and there's some parents have a tradition that if they did it and they had these kind of parties when they were in high school, then maybe they'll do it for their children too. So typically it'll be around proms or dances, or homecoming or prom dances are typically when we'll see something of that nature. Sometimes during the summertime, since school's been out for so long this year, there's always that potential. But luckily, it's not lucky, but the fact that there's a pandemic, that people are trying to stay away from each other, we haven't seen it really happen because everybody is trying to stay away from others and just keeping their own family at their house.
Good. Now, I remember growing up, Friday night football games that's where everybody was, and there was always somebody's house or a couple people's house that you were going to. Do you find that kind of typical here as well?
I think that does happen. I don't think it's at a big a scale as what I remember. We didn't have a lot to do, didn't have social media, didn't have cell phones when I was in high school. So congregating and going to people's houses was how you socialized. There wasn't any internet or anything else and kids now, they socialize electronically a lot more. So I think they do it. But I don't think I wouldn't say I have heard that it's a every Friday night thing, no. Maybe in a very small select group of students, maybe, but not. I don't think it's the majority at all.
Okay. So we're going to switch gears a little bit, and Jade, will look to you and ask the question about some of the insurance effects that it has on it. If an adult is found giving a minor alcohol and they get in an accident or something happens at their home, can you tell us a little bit about what happens from the insurance world?
Certainly. Whenever the child would be pulled over, and if they were charged, whether they were had an accident or just being pulled over for some other reason, once that conviction shows up on the Department of Motor Vehicle report or DMV report, then usually the insurance company is notified of that. And once we get that notification, then we take a look at that policy, and typically we will non-renew that policy, or depending upon the seriousness of the accident or the charge, then we may very well just go ahead and non-renew it at that given time. So it does affect the policy greatly. And on the other side, as far as you mentioned, homeowners, if somebody were to get in an accident or something should happen, it could also come back to that person who owns that home. If they were determined that they had given them the alcohol, then they could be charged as well. And so if something like that would show up, then of course they may or may not be liable in that situation too. So a lot of different things can happen from just that one accident or one person, being pulled over or whatever the case might be. And there are a lot of things that can come along with that, as far as having to move to another insurance company and different things like that. The rates will go up, increase quite a bit. They will just increase significantly because of what has gone on, and now that person has caused a greater risk for their family, and again, they would just be charged a higher premium, probably with another company.
So I can assume that, let's just kind of make this easier. So my daughter is at your house at a party, and you've provided alcohol, and she gets in an accident. Do both your insurance change, and does my insurance change because my daughter was in the accident?
Yes, it could very well be. The insurance, as far as the vehicle goes, the insurance always follows the vehicle first, and then of course it's going to go against the driver of that vehicle. So if you own the vehicle and your daughter was driving, then that would certainly affect you. And then if it's found that the homeowner is the person who gave the alcohol to your daughter, then certainly it could come back against that person as well. but it's going to go against the auto insurance first before anything else happens.
Okay, and does that just affect my daughter's vehicle, or who all does that affect?
It affects your entire household. So it would affect that vehicle as well as any other vehicles in your household and all the drivers in your household. So if your daughter's charged in that situation and she's convicted, then we would take a look at your whole policy. And again, we would either non-renew it or cancel it. And then you would actually have to shop for insurance with another company and look, and it actually would be with a significantly higher rate because of what has happened.
Okay, that's really good information. Do you have any statistics for kind of the adult versus teen ratio of alcohol-related incidents?
Well, about 50% of children, well, I should say underage drivers, cause accidents, and they are actually alcohol-related. And a person dies about every 30 minutes in an auto-related accident involving alcohol.
Wow, that's very sad. So we've got kind of some social hosting information, kind of understand the effects of driving. If my daughter is let's say at a homecoming dance and there's an after party that is, we'll say, at my house this time, and I have provided alcohol to minors, and a student is there and consumes alcohol and trips and falls in the pool and ends up drowning. What does that look like from an insurance standpoint? Kind of what happens from a law standpoint? How does that kind of operate and affect?
Well, the person that provides the alcohol is going to be culpable, certainly criminally and civilly. So criminally, it could be a great many charges. It's not just that one person got hurt or injured. It could be there's a dozen kids that drank at the party. That would be a dozen individual charges for each child underage that drank at that party that the person provided alcohol to. So that could really stack up to a lot of criminal charges based on how many people were there. Typically, a party has more than a couple people. It could be several dozen. If somebody gets hurt, if it's a gross negligence issue, they could, certainly would be charged with contributing to each individual minor, providing alcohol to each individual underage person. If somebody was killed, it might be some even more serious felony charges could be placed if it was seen as that person was grossly negligent in their behavior also. So that has happened before. And then, the civil part of the homeowner's insurance, it can get exceedingly expensive if somebody gets hurt. If somebody gets hurt, and certainly if somebody's killed, that can be exceedingly expensive. And most people, their biggest asset is their home or their property, and that might be what the insurance or the court goes after to pay that penalty.
Yeah, well, exactly like you said, that is one of a person's largest assets is their home. So with homeowners policies, you would have a certain liability limit on that homeowners policy, and so if something like this should occur, then that's the amount that they're going to look toward. Now, if it exceeds that amount, certainly that person may stand to lose their home or lose any other assets that they may have. If they were to have retirements or anything else, they could lose all of that as well. So it is a good idea to make sure that you do have proper coverages on your policy, but most importantly, just don't allow these things to be happening.
So you said a couple of times about homeowners insurance policy, and I know a good portion of our population also are renters. Is the same process affect renters as well, or do you know the differentiations of that?
Yes, sir. Liability would be the same on a homeowner's policy or a renter's policy because they're very similar in how they're written. It's just that one covers, one only has your contents coverage and the other one would have your house, but the liabilities and medical payments and all those would be the same on both policies.
Okay. So both of you are professionals in our community and you're also parents. So one question that I want to ask, and kind of from a professional and a parental perspective, is how as a community, school systems, law enforcement, and small businesses, our community as a whole, how can we cut down and play a major portion in cutting down on social hosting and underage drinking altogether?
Well, I think what we're doing now today, doing the videos, and of course we typically would do them live. The education part of it, what the Prevention Coalition is doing, is getting out and spreading the word. When you get the kids to go to the gas stations and at a point in their life where they're starting to go out unsupervised, they're starting to go out driving themselves around. They're starting to go to parties, and their parents are not with them all the time. So we try to speak on it regularly because they know who's doing what, and they'll usually tell us in school, give us examples of what's going on. It's still here. I think it's in every community, but I know the students here are pretty free with the information to talk about it and throw it out there and seek some advice and let us know if somebody's doing something dangerous.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think one of the things I believe in is just talking to your children and making sure that you keep that communication with them. My daughter has several friends that'll, come and go at our house, especially through this pandemic. They have visited a little more often and keeping everybody safe. But we talk about these things all the time, and they really see it, and it upsets them when they hear about these things that Hugh's talking about. So I think just continuing to talk to them and letting them continue to help, reinforce positive attitudes with their friends is a great thing. And I just, I continue to do that daily. I mean, my daughter and I talk all the time, and we don't hide anything. If something's going on, we're going to talk about it. So I think communication is the biggest key with the kids. And then at Farm Bureau, we also have a teenage driver program in which it's about a 30-minute video and conversation that we have with our new drivers. And this is something that we talk very seriously about. And it is the drugs and alcohol specifically, as well as other things that go out and happen on the highway. But just having those conversations with them and kind of reiterating the do's and don'ts, and they sign a pledge that they won't do these things. And I think that helps a lot of my kids. And I tell them once they become a driver with Farm Bureau, they're one of mine. So, and I think just letting them know that you're there for them. I give them my cell phone number, and I tell them if something happens, call me. But I think just helping them to know that people care and that people are watching out for them. Yeah, as Hugh said, we live in a small community, and if something's going on somewhere, everybody knows about it. And I think, that's one way our kids know, well, if mom's not here, if somebody else is watching over, and they know what's going on. So I think communication and just being open with the kids is one of the best things we can do.
That's a very good point. And to that point, I'll ask this question, Jade. Since you and your daughter are very close and connected in communication that way, kind of from your perspective, if I have a student as a teacher or my child who I've learned is going to these parties and is taking part of this, I'm kind of intimidated about having this conversation. So how do you start the conversation? What are there tips or tricks, or do I just go in guns blazing? How do I start this conversation?
I think you just start it. I mean, there's no easy way to do that. I've had to have some very difficult conversations with my daughter over the years, and there's no easy way to talk about tough things that are going on. So I think you just have to do it. Just as a side note, when I was a very young child, when I was young, probably a teenager, I had cousins that lived in Northern Virginia. And my cousin told me she was going to a party. She was several years older than me. And so I immediately went to my parents and my cousin's parents and told them what was going on. Because, even though I was so young, it just really bothered me because I knew there was going to be things going on at this party that shouldn't be happening. So the parents got together and they let her go to the party and they let her be there for about a half hour, and then they went and got her. And so she has never forgotten that. And to this day, she remembers, and she will talk about it often, about how that really changed her life back then because of that simple gesture when I spoke up. And you know, back then, I guess I didn't think a whole lot about it. I was just like, okay, this is the right thing to do. I need to tell somebody. So I think you just have to talk about it. There's no easy way to start the conversation, and you just start talking and try to get them out of that situation.
That's good. There's something in there that I really like that you said. As a young person, you felt like you wanted to stop what was going on because of the care and concern. And I think that's something our students and kids and our students in our schools need to know, that somebody cares. And so, like as a student, if you feel like something is going on, tell somebody. Because that's important, because you value them and had care and concern for them.
Exactly.
And that was life-changing for that person, even if they're mad at that moment, because they got, tattled on, if you will. But that was very important. So thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
So we're going to kind of wrap up here, unless there is anything that you guys want to add to the conversation.
Going back to talking about these topics and how scary it can be, you have to, especially for parents, you have to remember the number one killer of young people, children, is car accidents. And that is how younger people die soonest, because of a car crash, whether it's their own fault or somebody else's fault. So you have to think about, that is the ultimate outcome of a bad decision. So before it gets to that kind of level, be able to talk to your children about the dangers of our lives are at risk when we leave the house, and we mitigate that by what we do. But if we live a lifestyle, or we make decisions where we can increase the danger a whole lot, that you've got to talk about. But I think our community is good, and most of the parents here are doing the right thing, and they're willing to speak on this subject.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both for your time. We appreciate you doing what you do and taking the time to speak with us at the Prevention Forum this year. So thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank
Great,
you for
thank
having
you.
us.